Adam Schefter. He is the preeminent NFL newsbreaker in the land and ESPN's senior insider. Senior insider, equity or age?
Probably age, Paul. I think if you do something for 12 years and you're 54 years old, they have to call you senior as a matter of rule. So I don't think it's anything that I've accomplished. It's just something that basically, like I said, you do something long enough, you reach my age, you're senior.
Adam has degrees from the University of Michigan and Northwestern, which is perfect for the purple and gold, in my opinion, given defensive end Kwity Paye and offensive tackle Rashawn Slater would look great wearing Minnesota Vikings colors. The Wolverine first. What do you like about defensive end Kwity Paye?
Well, I think he can step in right away and provide pass rush. He's a good, effective pass rusher and can come in and contribute right away. That would be a good pick for Minnesota. I don't think Rashawn Slater will be there at 14. Minnesota's 14, right, in the first round?
Yeah.
I would be really surprised if Rashawn Slater is there at 14. I've heard his name too many times from too many people who like him too much to make me think that he is going to slide to 14. And if he does happen to slide to that spot, turn in the card.
So from what you hear when you're digging, and you dig better than anybody, the offensive tackles in this draft, it truly is that deep. I'm not going to say like wide receivers last year, Mr. Schefter, but I mean, it's incredibly deep for offensive tackles, right?
There are a lot of them, but look, offensive linemen, good offensive linemen are hard to find. And I always find it interesting that you talk to teams and they almost downplay the need, importance, significance of interior offensive linemen at the draft. They get pushed down like they're not very valuable. And then when it comes to the final cut of the year, everybody's looking for interior offensive linemen. I'm like, where was that need back in the draft when everybody was downplaying the need for them? So, yes, this is a draft rich in tackles. It's got some good offensive linemen. If it were me, I'd load up. If I were Jacksonville drafting a good young quarterback, I'd be drafting a lot of offensive linemen to protect him. If I were the New York Jets drafting a good young quarterback, I would be drafting a lot of offensive linemen to protect him with. And those are very valuable. They're hard to find. You can develop them. And this would be a good draft to go find some of them, Paul.
Ain't no doubt about that. And Schefter has a terrific podcast. And on a recent podcast, former NFL quarterback Chris Sims likes BYU quarterback Zach Wilson more than Trevor Lawrence. Why?
Well, let me say this to you. The Adam Schefter podcast, Chris Sims came on, and I know people think it's like clickbait and we're just doing that for headline. He's just saying it. The fact of the matter is, as I pointed out on the podcast, in 2017, when Mitchell Trubisky was universally regarded as the top quarterback in the draft, Chris Sims liked Patrick Mahomes more than anybody. The next year in the 2018 draft, when Baker Mayfield went 1, the two quarterbacks that Chris Sims put atop his rankings were Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Ahead of Baker, ahead of Sam Darnold, ahead of Josh Rosen. How'd that work out? Last year, he liked Justin Herbert on the record better than he liked Tua Tagovailoa.
Wow.
So, again, there's a track record. Now, that doesn't mean that Zach Wilson's going to be a better NFL quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. But what it does mean is that I recommend listening to his words and taking what he says to heart, because he's not just saying it for shock value and to get a headline on it. That's what he believes. He believes that Trevor Lawrence is not quite the NFL quarterback prospect that Zach Wilson is right now.
Defensively, Schefter, is Miami defensive end Jalen Phillips perhaps the greatest wild card in the draft? And I say that because he was a beast last season for the Canes. Yeah. We have the concussions. We have a wrist that may be chronic. We have a transfer. Jalen Phillips is a wild card.
And wanted to retire too, right, Paul? Like, in fact, he did retire at one point or another. And so in a year where there are a ton of questions about a ton of players, there are a ton of questions about Jalen Phillips. And the guy is enormously gifted and talented and can do a lot of different things. If you want pass rush, that might be a guy to get. But the fact of the matter is, there are these questions, there are these issues, and that's what each team is left to investigate now as it decides whether to pick him.
With the Minnesota Vikings, Adam, into the 2021 season, what do you think can be done via the draft to help us run down Green Bay and win the division?
Well, I think when I talk to people about what they think the Vikings are going to do in the draft, and you know the team better than anyone, Paul, they think that Minnesota is going to be looking for help on both lines, offensive and defensive and offensive. Break it down however you want. And so wherever they find the value to be, that's where they'll go and draft somebody. And I think that they could use help in both those areas. I would expect that that'll be the case next week when Minnesota's picking, that you'll see them add offensive lineman, defensive lineman, offensive lineman, no particular order, depends on who's there.
Now with the quarterbacks, and as I call the ballyhooed five, from Lawrence to Wilson to Fields, Lance, Jones, eliminate them from what you're hearing or what you know. Is there another quarterback or quarterbacks that you think may get into the NFL, the right spot, and eventually tear it up?
Oh, you hear a lot of intrigue about Davis Mills from Stanford. I think people like him. Kellen Mond from Texas A&M is another guy that I think people like. Look, quarterbacks have a fascination every year. And the fact of the matter here is, of these 5 in the first round that you've outlined, Paul, probably 3 of them are going to hit and 2 of them are going to bust.
Right.
That's probably what's going to happen. Maybe 2 hit, maybe 3 bust. Okay? Maybe 4 hit, maybe 1 hit. Like, we don't know, but we'll say conservatively, 3 hit, 2 bust.
Yeah.
You tell me the 2 that bust. I don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah.
Right? And then guess what? The teams don't know who it's going to be either. Because if they did, they'd have the right pick every time. And so when we get into the first round and pick those 5 quarterbacks, and then you start flashing ahead to the other quarterbacks, it's just as much, even more so of a dart throw then than it is early on. So when I give you 2 names, Kellen Mond and Davis, one will probably hit, one will probably miss, maybe both will miss, right? So again, there'll be a quarterback somewhere along the way in this draft, I don't know, round 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere, that makes his mark in the NFL. And again, sometimes it's not just who the player is, but it's the situation that he's placed in. With Tom Brady, if he were drafted in Cincinnati, been able to elevate that entire organization and have the type of success he did in New England? You tell me.
No.
Maybe some,
yeah,
but hard to imagine exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
But he got placed in a perfect spot with a great coach, with a great organization, and look what happened. So, and I've heard this, back when I covered Denver as a newspaper beat writer for 16 years, from 1990 to 2005, people used to say, well, John Elway, who made who? John Elway made Mike Shanahan, or Mike Shanahan made John Elway? You hear the same thing, Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, Brett Favre, and Mike McCarthy, like, we go back and forth. And I just think the fact of the matter is, the most successful teams, coach helps the quarterback and the quarterback helps the coach. It goes both ways. Why does it have to be one way, right? And there are enough teams that haven't helped quarterbacks. That's why some of these quarterbacks wash out.
Schefty, this Gators tight end, Kyle Pitts, I mean, when you read about him or hear about him, it's like it's a cross between Travis Kelce and Mark Bavaro. So he's going to be really good, probably. Do you think he's going to change games right out of the gate?
Well, what I would say, Paul, is that teams that I've spoken to, front office members I've spoken to, they tell me that Kyle Pitts, and let me say I've watched limited tape of the guy, but they say that Kyle Pitts is maybe the best player in this draft, including Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Certainly he's the best non-quarterback in this draft and might just be the best player in this draft. And he has a chance to become the highest drafted tight end here. He's going to go high. I think there's a real chance he's going to go 4 to Atlanta. There are a number of people that love him as a player. And again, what I would say is it's great to hype him up. It's great that he's got these talents and traits. And yes, he's got a chance to be a star player. But let's see him go produce at the NFL level first before we're anointing him the next cross between Travis Kelce and Mark Bavaro.
What if Shanny and John Lynch moved up to the 3 spot to bookend George Kittle with Kyle Pitts? Are you kidding me?
They didn't.
That's what I understand because I follow you on Twitter. Thank you, Schefty.
Hey, Paul, enjoy the draft. Thanks for having me, and good luck in your fantasy basketball playoffs.
God bless you, bud. Thank you. Adam Schefter doesn't get much better than that. And speaking of doesn't get much better than that, what a treat it is to be back in the beautiful TCO Performance Center studio. Holy cow, is it beautiful in here? Just like a week from today, it'll be beautiful with the National Football League draft, as the Minnesota Vikings currently, emphasis on currently, are slated to select 14th. On behalf of the Vikings Entertainment Network and all of us here at Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center, I'm Paul Allen. Thanks for watching.